Being a Longhorn is pride, achievement, family. It's about belonging to a vibrant community that strives for greatness in everything. Being a Longhorn means engaging in STEM education, starting your path to college in elementary, and earning a college degree in high school. Being a Longhorn is a choice to lead, to innovate, to thrive in any setting. Here, you'll discover that learning isn't limited to textbooks. We believe in hands-on experiences that ignite creativity and fuel imagination. As a Longhorn, you have the opportunities to grow beyond the classroom, from the stage to the field. It's a great day to be a Longhorn. And when the time comes to graduate, you'll leave with a sense of accomplishment, knowing that you're prepared for whatever the future holds. The pride of being a Longhorn is something that cannot be described. It's better to experience it and feel it. This is Cedar Hill ISD. We educate, empower, and inspire.
Good evening, Longhorns. My name is Dr. Keisha McDonald. I am the Director of Family and Community Engagement, and we would like to welcome you tonight to our Digital Parent University. For our special guest speaker tonight, we have Professor Hurd, and we are excited for the insights and expertise he'll share. Professor Elgry Jones Hurd III is originally from Eastern Menlo Park, California. He holds a master's degree from Grand Canyon University in psychology with an emphasis in industrial organizational psychology. He holds a master's degree from San Jose State University in sociology with an emphasis in sociology of education. He also has a bachelor's degree from Cal Poly Pomona University in sociology. For over 20 years, Professor Hurd has worked in education in some capacity. He's a faculty member for the psychology and sociology departments at the Cedar Valley campus of Dallas College, formerly Dallas Community College District. He served as Dallas College's first chair of the Black Employees Resource Group. He created and facilitated a virtual district-wide read and discussion of CAST, The Origins of Our Discontents, 2022, during the United States height of the COVID pandemic. And recently, Elgry was selected to be a 2023-2024 Texas Community College Teachers Association Faculty Fellow. Over the last 14 years, Professor Hurd has traveled around the country, educating educators and parents about the power of culturally relevant education. Professor Hurd specializes in educational consulting, diversity, inclusion, belonging, servant leadership, motivational speaking, and organizational program evaluations. As it relates to serving the community, Professor Hurd served as the Secretary for Communities in Schools, Dallas Region's Leadership Council for nearly 3 years, and an influencer for the online women's networking empowerment site onmogul.com. He is currently a secretary of a local chapter of the Texas Parent Teacher Association, that's Texas Parent PTA. He is also a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Alpha Sigma Lambda chapter, where he serves as a board member for the chapter's nonprofit educational foundation, Alpha Merit. Professor Hurd is pursuing his doctorate in leadership studies with a concentration in general leadership in Dallas Baptist University. Elgry resides with his family in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area in Texas. We are glad to have you tonight here with us. And at this time, I will turn it over to you, Professor Hurd.
All right. Thank you, Dr. McDonald. Appreciate that. So good evening. The title of our presentation is This or That, Great Success or Great Failure. One of the things that I get the privilege to do throughout the year is to teach in the southern sector of Dallas County. And one of the things that's really important for me is for students to have some tips to help them move along and be successful. So hopefully be able to give you some tips, whether you're a parent, whether you're a student, something you can pass on to someone else. And at the very end, we'll have some chances for you all to ask questions for me to be able to answer those and kind of go from there. So let's get started. So even though this is virtual, I would like to get some feedback from people on some things about how they navigate. And so one of the things I'm curious is, what makes a great student? What's your opinion on that? What makes a great student? So if people want to put in the comments what they think makes a great student, go from there. Okay, so let's see. Study habits, spot on. All right, yes. What else? Okay, take another 30 seconds. What else? Okay. Being disciplined, absolutely. Being dedicated, yes, spot on. Parental involvement, man, if that's awesome, especially for a dual credit student, yes. Okay, now let's flip the script a little bit. What makes a student be unsuccessful? What's an unsuccessful student look like as it relates to the college experience? And that could be a dual credit student or a traditional student. Let's see what comes up. Poor note-taking skills. Absolutely. Just because you take notes doesn't mean it's good. Not sleeping, talking too much in class. For some professors, talking too much class is a bad thing. I like students to talk in class, but not getting enough sleep is definitely problematic. Definitely want to encourage people to unorganized. Too much chaos is not necessarily a good thing if you're trying to be successful in your classes. So not doing daily assignments, yes. Not waiting till last minute to read. All those fit the categories not doing daily assignments. If you're assigned reading, ideally you're reading all the time, not just right before class starts, not just right before an exam. Okay, thank you for the feedback. I appreciate that. I want to go over some of the learning outcomes that we want to cover for today. So thank you all for participating in the icebreaker. So we're going to talk about best practices to maximize the benefits of face-to-face classes. Online classes are a different category, and those require different focus points. We're focusing today on face-to-face, and also the consequence of pretending to be a great student. Some students think they're great students because school comes easy for them, which allows bad habits or unhealthy habits to be able to fester and not really be corrected. So we're going to talk about that and be really honest about that. Okay. So here's the thing. One of the side effects of pretending to be great is it's a lack of trust by the instructor. As an instructor, I'm not going to trust a student when they keep demonstrating to me time and time again that they're not going to show up. And I mean by not showing up means they're constantly coming to class late. They're constantly trying to turn in things late. Outside of the student, you want your instructor to be your number one fan. And it's hard to be someone's number one fan when you don't do your part. So the side effect of that, what it looks like in the classroom, is I'm less likely to give a student extensions on assignments. I'm less likely to go above and beyond for a student. And remember, faculty are people too. And so people remember how you made them feel. And just because you're a student doesn't mean that instructors don't have feelings. And so if they feel like you're not appreciating their time, that may be something that could be a challenge for you in the future. So we move on to the next one. I love Stephen Covey. One of the things I love about him is having some opportunities to talk about the big rock. So it's a short video that wants you to be able to take in so we can talk about focusing on the big things. So at the end of this, there'll be a QR code. It has in that video, you'll be able to watch and you'll be able to see that Stephen Covey book. video and what it has to share. And the point of that is making sure you focus on the big rocks, the important things, and then take care of the small things. They'll make room for the small things once you take care of the big things. Another side effect of pretending to be great is the side effect of burnout. When you procrastinate, you typically crash and burn. The procrastination cycle goes like this. I procrastinate, then I feel guilty, then I panic about it, then I make excuses. And because I've made excuses, I'm not actually going to follow through, which leads me to procrastinate and for the cycle to continue and to keep going. There's a lack of thoroughness when you get caught in the procrastination cycle. And you could eventually not only fail assignments, but you could potentially fail a class. And depending on what you're trying to do in college, if it's a prerequisite, now you can't move forward. If you fail too many classes, now you're dealing with a academic progress issue. You're not moving fast enough. You're not making enough progress. And if you are utilizing financial aid, what that means is financial aid may be something you don't have access to until you get your grades together. So there's some upside to not procrastinating. And I think sometimes, especially when we're talking about dual credit students, oftentimes while our dual credit students are college students, they are also high school students. And so whoever is part of their support system, whether it be their counselors, their parents, their aunts, their uncles, their grandparents, their neighbors, it's important to help them see the consequences of the procrastination cycle before they have to experience it for themselves. Okay? So what I try to get students to understand, and I try to stress this in all of my classes, is if it's important to you, you will find a way. If not, you'll find an excuse. When I joined my fraternity, one of the things they talked about is what excuses were and how excuses built these monuments of nothingness. And those who use them rarely succeed. And so that's the thing about excuses. I always ask students in my classes, show me how much time they spend on their phones as relates to FaceTime and which apps take up the most of their time. Some students only spend 3 or 4 hours on their phone on average, but some students spend as much as 15 to 18 hours on average, which means some days it's more and some days is less. So for me, it's important that students understand your instructors, when you tell me you don't have time, why would they want to give you additional time? And that's kind of the thing that students have to understand. Don't escape blame if you cannot turn to something that's actually going to do something. And the reality is excuses don't turn into something that's beneficial. Own your decisions. Take ownership of the outcome. If it's important to you, you'll make time. So when it comes to your schoolwork, if it's an afterthought, as the courses get harder, your grades will probably reflect that. So own your success and be proactive. Start thinking about doing things in advance. Start thinking about asking questions. Be okay asking for help. You do that, you're probably heading down the right path. So, sharing some things, and I show this in my class. I actually have this t-shirt, and one of the things I tell students is whether you're feeling happy, silly, fabulous, nervous, hyper, misunderstood, helpful, grumpy, or hopefully curious, no matter how you're feeling, at the end of the day, you still got to get the work done. At the end of the day, your instructors are expecting you to turn in your work. Some of you may have work. Some of you may have obligations to take care of younger siblings, take care of older elders within your family. You may have other extracurricular activities you have to do, but you still got to get the work done. And I think it's important that your feelings are valid. Your feelings, however you're feeling for that moment, do not excuse the work that has to get done. So we talk about best practices. One of my favorite shirts, the shirt I'm wearing, which says it's in the syllabus. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the things you need for your class, they are in the syllabus. But a best practice is simply utilizing office hours. Now, for some of the instructors, all their hours are virtual. So that means you need to Try to contact them, email and schedule a time for you to have what we call Microsoft Teams, which is essentially a virtual meeting using Microsoft Office platform, where you can ask the questions. Most instructors that I know within Dallas College don't have a lot of students who utilize their office hours. And because that happens, students are missing out on a chance to ask all the questions. Think of office hours as a chance to brainstorm with the faculty. Think of office hours as a chance to ask all the questions about the class, about your future, about anything. It's a chance for you to get hints on upcoming assignments, upcoming deliverables. It's a chance, because scholarships are always a good thing. It's a chance for you to get a chance to maybe get a reference for a scholarship, or maybe a reference for an internship, or maybe a reference for a potential employment opportunity. All those things can happen in office hours. And too often, students don't take advantage of them, and so they miss out. They miss out on opportunities to learn how to study for the class. Because in the class, you've only got so much time. There's so much you got to cover. But during the office hours, we can do deep dives. We can talk about things. We can talk about ways for you to be successful when you hit hiccups in class. We can talk about ways for you to improve, or things that are working that you can keep doing, or people you can talk to in class or on campus that can help you. Another best practice is embrace the feedback from faculty. A lot of instructors, myself included, use rubrics to tell students how they're doing. I'm sending out announcements in class about, hey, here's something you need to work on. So when that's being sent out, it's important that you look at that feedback. Sometimes that feedback is directed to everyone. There's often opportunities where the instructor is giving you direct feedback just for you. So the question you have to ask is, am I using the feedback my instructor is giving me to improve? Because good is the enemy of great. So if you're daring to be great, then you have to dare yourself to take on the feedback that your faculty member is giving you. See how you can leverage that. See how you can maybe ask additional questions that you normally don't ask, because now you've gotten feedback that you didn't have before. I tell students all the time, there are two things that often help you that students sleep on. One, reading the syllabus, reading it in its entirety. In my class, I put special things in the syllabus that are often extra credit to see if students are actually reading the entire thing, putting the extra credit in random spots. The second thing, as it relates to, is using the rubrics. Typically, instructors are telling you what they want before an assignment is due. They're breaking down in advance so you can see all the things that are required. What you see on the screen is an example of a rubric, what it takes to get a 4. So in this example, a 4 would be, the top grade, a 3 would be the second, a 2 would be an average, and a 1 would be you're just getting started. Oftentimes, when students are submitting assignments, they're not verifying if what they submitted matches with the expectation of the instructor. And so I tell students often, are you sure what you're submitting is what the instructor is asking for? How do you know? Oftentimes the answer to that is it's in the rubric. It's in the rubric telling you how many words. It's telling you the things you have to cover. It's telling you if you need references or not. It's telling you if you have to have a peer review it. All those things are in the rubric, so use it. And if there's not a rubric that you can visually see before an assignment is due, ask the instructor, is there a rubric that you're looking for? You can wait for the instructor to give it to you, but that's not how you become a great student. That's how you end up failing. Don't assume that every instructor is going to have the rubric readily available if you don't ask. So be courageous enough to ask the questions and figure out, how can I get the information I need? All right, I appreciate the time. One of the most important things of my sessions is not what I share with you all, is the Q&A session. I want to give people in the audience a chance to ask questions whether you are a student or a question if you're a support system of your student, of your scholar. I want to offer some hopefully useful things and useful strategies that will help you serve the scholar. And if you're a scholar, hopefully serve yourself.
Okay, at this time, Longhorns, go ahead and place your questions in our comment section, just as you did being a good student or a not so good student. That was a wonderful icebreaker, Professor Hurd. I enjoyed that. So if you have questions, please make sure you place those in our comments at this time. I'm not seeing any questions so far. We'll give you one more minute to collect your thoughts. Oh, here we go. Thank you.
Okay. Parental advice for a first-time student in the early college academy, just general study skills. Great question. One advice that I would give to parents trying to support their scholar is to read ahead. Just because the reading is not due yet, doesn't mean you don't get ahead. The benefit of reading ahead is when it's time for that subject to be discussed in class, you already got a little familiarity with the topic, and so your questions are more intentional, and you get more out of the questions you ask in class. Another suggestion is to do backwards planning and kind of help your scholar navigate by that. What I mean by backwards planning is to establish when the deadlines are. So as a parent, I have 2 scholars that are taking dual credit. I try to have my scholars print out their syllabus each syllabus the first day. So we can look at, so we're on the same page with our scholars. And then whatever the deadlines are, helping them navigate. If the deadline is Friday, tell yourself the deadline is Wednesday to give yourself a buffer for assignments because life happens. They get sick. They got an extracurricular activity that took longer and wore them out. And that's the important part. The other part is figuring out starting assignments a little earlier, starting in pieces. So if you're starting in pieces, if you are giving your deadlines a little earlier than you normally do, if you are reading in advance, and the last thing when it comes to study skills is make your notes make sense for you. So if you're telling your scholar to take notes, tell them to take notes beyond definitions. Make sure it's something that will help them hold on to the information. If they can connect the information to something they care about, they're more likely to hold on to it.
Great questions. I believe that's all of the questions we have at this time.
So Dr. McDonald, what you have after that is my contact information. And after that, no one needs to hold on to this slide because the next one has details about all the resources we talked about. So if you use your phone and you scan this QR code, what you're going to be able to do is you're going to see information about different things you can utilize to help you be more successful if you're a student, if you're a parent, to be able to help your scholar be more successful. And at the end, it has my contact information for Dallas College. I want to see the students in Cedar Hill ISD thrive. It is personal to me. And again, the contact information is there and it's also on the QR code. So take advantage of that. If you have additional questions, we have a little more time, want to answer those. But at the end of the day, you might have questions that you want to marinate on and want to ask later. But I want to see all the students, all the scholars, Cedar Hill ISD thrive. And so that's one reason why we tag team with Cedar Hill ISD to create opportunities to get students to think a little bit past the obvious.
I do see that we have a few more individuals that have joined us. So if you have questions for Professor Hurd that are dealing with our dual credit information and how to assist your scholar with being a successful dual credit student, go ahead and ask those questions at this time. I know I wish I would have had some of this information when I was in college, especially with the note taking, making it make sense for you. That was a nugget there, Professor Hurd. I really liked that.
That was a lesson learned from having the privilege of being a public school teacher and knowing that students were often taking notes because they were told to, but really not taking notes in ways that made sense for them. So those habits come over to college and the notes are just there. So I think it's important that students know, like, when you're in college, these notes are for you. So make them work for you.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, I believe this will conclude our session at this time. We will have this for your preview. You can always go back on Facebook and YouTube and view this at a later date. It will also be placed in our family noon message on next Monday, and our parents will have an opportunity to view this wonderful information at that time as well. All right. Thank you to all of our Longhorns for joining us, and thank you, Professor Hurd, for giving us this very valuable information.
No problem. Thanks for having me.